Hello and welcome to Data Science for Everyone. This is our fourth and final chapter of statistical analysis in Python. Today we will be looking at correlation and use statistics to look at experimental designs in order to understand real-world data. Let's explain correlation with a simple example. Here's a dataset where I have recorded study hours and test scores. These columns represent our two quantitative variables. Usually, when we want to see if there's a relationship between two quantitative variables, the first thing we do is visualize them using a scatter plot. I have used Matplotlib and Seaborn to make a scatter plot. Here, each point represents one student. We can see that as the study hours increase, so does the test scores. This shows us that there's a strong positive correlation between study hours and the test scores. In scenarios where if there's a decrease in one variable when there's an increase in the other, we can say that the variables are negatively correlated. For example, we can see that as x is increasing, the value of y is decreasing. This is negative correlation. There are also cases where there is no correlation between two variables, as we can see in the plot on the right. So, how do we quantify correlation? We can quantify the correlation between two numeric variables using a parameter called the correlation coefficient. The value of the correlation coefficient ranges from -1 to +1. If the correlation coefficient is close to +1, it means a strong positive correlation. We saw this in the test scores example, where as the study hours go up, scores tend to go up as well. If the correlation coefficient is close to -1, we have a strong negative correlation. As one increases, the other decreases. And if the value is close to 0, there is no clear correlation between the two variables. It is very easy to calculate the correlation coefficient between two numerical variables. We'll use the function called cor and specify the two variables. The cor function computes a type of correlation called the Pearson's correlation. There are other types of correlation such as Kendall's correlation and Spearman's correlation, which are variations of the Pearson's correlation. As we can see, the correlation coefficient between the study hours and test scores is 0.99, which indicates that there is a strong correlation between the two variables. To add a regression line, instead of using scatterplot function, we'll use the regplot function from Seaborn. If you want to learn more about Matplotlib and Seaborn, I have made detailed tutorials that you can check out. I have linked them in the video description. Correlation helps us see how two variables are related to each other, but it's not foolproof. There are crucial details to keep in mind. Take a look at this plot. We can clearly see a pattern between x and y, which is not linear but U-shaped. But when we compute the correlation coefficient, it's -0.05, and we cannot trust this value. We cannot use correlation coefficient for data which does not have a linear correlation. It is always good to visualize data and see if it is linear or not before computing the correlation coefficient. Let's check out a simple dataset that looks at growth rate of plants when exposed to sunlight. The link to this data is in the description below if you want to follow along. First, we'll import the dataset and store it as plant_growth. When we make a scatter plot, we see that as the hours of sunlight increases, the growth rate also increases. But the growth rate plateaus off towards the right, where increasing the exposure to sunlight has no significant benefits to the growth rate. We see that the Pearson's correlation coefficient is 0.85, which is a strong positive correlation. Remember that correlation coefficient can only be used if the relationship is linear. However, our data is not linear and curved towards the right-hand side. To be able to use correlation coefficient, we have to transform the data such that it is linear. For this particular data, a log transformation of sunlight hours can help us. When we transform sunlight variable using a logarithm, we compress the extreme values and reveal a linear pattern. After this transformation, the correlation jumps from 0.85 to 0.93, showing a robust linear relationship. Besides log transform, other techniques like taking square roots or reciprocals can be used to linearize datasets before correlation studies. The right transformation depends on the data's characteristics. Sometimes we might even need to transform both the variables to achieve linear relationships. Let's look at this data that measures travel time and distance traveled. The scatter plot is not really linear and curved. To fix this, we can use the square root transformation. As we can see, after the square root transformation, the plot looks linear. So you might ask, why bother with transformation? It is because certain statistical tools, including correlation and regression, assume that the relationships between datasets are linear. Transformations bring the data closer to those assumptions and make the analysis reliable. Correlation doesn't imply causation. Let's look at this scatter plot, which shows a linear relationship between ice cream sales and drowning incidents. The correlation is almost 1. However, just because there is a strong correlation doesn't mean that one is causing the other. This kind of correlation is called spurious correlation. Something else might be driving this effect between drowning cases and ice cream sales. A confounding variable is a variable that masks or fabricates a relationship between two variables which looks directly correlated but in reality has no relationship at all. In this case, they are the ice cream sales and drowning incidents. The confounding variable here is temperature. Hot days increase ice cream sales and also increases the probability that people go for a swim. This in turn drives a spurious correlation between the two. And now that we have a strong understanding of correlation, let me introduce you to the basic concepts of experimental design. When we collect data, it's usually because we are trying to answer a question. Not just any question, but a question that we can test. The entire process of how we collect that data, what we sample, what we measure, shapes what we can actually conclude from our data. This is the underlying concept of experimental design. In experiments, we always have two key variables, the treatment variable and the measurement variable. The treatment is also known as the explanatory or independent variable, and the measurement is also known as the response or dependent variable. Let's look at an example from before. In the plant growth dataset, our explanatory or independent variable was hours of exposure to sunlight, and the response or dependent variable was the growth rate. A controlled experiment splits participants into two groups. One group gets the treatment and the other group doesn't. This helps isolate the effect of the treatment itself. Let me give you an example. Let's look at another plant growth dataset. We see that there are 6 plants and they are divided into two groups. Group 1 are the top 3 which received sunlight, and group 2 are the bottom 3 plants which did not receive sunlight. This experiment will let us decide whether sunlight has an effect on plant growth or not. To reduce bias, researchers aim for a randomized controlled trial or RCT, where participants are assigned to groups purely by chance and not by choice or characteristics. Sometimes a placebo is used. It looks like the real treatment but has no effect. This way, participants' expectations don't influence the outcome. In clinical studies, for example, patients might receive a real pill or a sugar pill without knowing which one. This is called the placebo. Sometimes, even the researcher doesn't know who gets the real treatment. That's called a double-blind design. It prevents subtle cues or expectations from affecting results. The fewer the sources of bias, the stronger our confidence that any observed effect really comes from the treatment itself. Not every question can be answered through an experiment. Sometimes we just observe. For instance, we cannot make people take up certain diet or hobby just for research. So we watch natural patterns instead, may be comparing outcomes between two people who already eat differently. Since participants in observational studies are not randomly assigned, we can see associations, but we cannot prove causation because other factors might influence the results. Finally, study designs can either be cross-sectional or longitudinal in nature. Cross-sectional studies look at a snapshot, like comparing people of different ages at a certain point in time. Longitudinal studies, on the other hand, follow the same individuals over time to see how they change. Cross-sectional studies are faster and easier, but longitudinal studies gives us a clear picture of cause and effect, especially when time is a factor. With that, we have come to an end of the fourth and final video on statistical analysis on Python. If you are learning from my videos, please like, comment and subscribe. See you guys in the next video. Thank you.